Before the video gets started, I mean no disrespect to Kennywood officials, staff members, or employees. This video is meant to be funny and entertaining. With that out of the way, let's get into it. I will never go to Kennywood, ever, but not for the reason you think. When you clicked on this video, you probably thought I, or a friend of mine, had a bad experience or found out something bad about the park, like, oh, they, I don't know, killed children?
Fuck the children!
That's not true at all. I do want to go to Kennywood, but I can't. There are a few reasons why, and most of them are logistical. This has little to do with my thoughts on Kennywood as a park, so don't worry, I won't attack anyone who has this as a home park. Or will I? Let's get right into why I will never go to Kennywood. Kennywood is one of those parks for me that's in a weird spot geographically. Technically, I live on the eastern shore of Maryland, where most major parks are at least 3 hours away, but for simplicity's sake, let's say I live in Washington, D.C. Kennywood is about a 4-hour drive from D.C., and with Beltway traffic it could turn into 5. I would compare this park's location to somewhere like Dorney Park or Knoebels. Those parks are similar distances away from DC, but they're close enough to each other where you can hit them both in one trip, like me and James did in May of 2023. Wild fuck 2023. Kennywood is really the only park of its size in the area. The only comparable park that's nearby is Waldameer, and even that's a smaller park. For slightly bigger parks, the closest one to Kennywood is Hershey Park to the east and Cedar Point to the west. This makes it especially difficult when planning trips, since things are much further apart. And when you're a college kid doing a spring-summer internship, like I am right now, you don't really have time to do major trips. Even if we wanted to do a day trip to Kennywood, it's so far away that the time spent driving for the time you spend at the park may not even be worth it. For Cedar Point and Hershey Park, those parks are absolutely worth going to. Cedar Point for me is far away enough that it will almost certainly be a park which we get a hotel for. And Hershey Park is close enough that we go there every year, usually for a day trip. Even if Kennywood was made into a hotel trip, you would spend 3 days at least if you wanted a full day at the park. And 2 of those days would be driving. Also, the driving days would only be part of the day because it's only 4 hours away instead of something like Cedar Point, which is 6 to 7 hours. That can take the whole day. And on top of that, you would need to spend money on 2 hotel nights just for 1 full day at Kennywood. Which brings us to... As Lick Boot from the 1992 Tom and Jerry movie said,
We've got to have money.
Since I am doing an internship, as mentioned before, I work full-time, so I do get paid, but I also have to use the money responsibly. I have tuition and other necessities I need to pay for, so park trips are more of a secondary expense. Going to Kennywood as a day trip would require paying for park admission and gas, while also sacrificing time for sleep. And as you know, time is money. The sleep problem can be solved by getting a hotel, but then that's just another expense. You could technically just get 1 hotel night, but then you'd have to either drive up to the park or drive back from the park on the same day you're there, which can be exhausting. Well, let's say you want a full day. Boom, another hotel night. That's even more money that needs to be spent for a park with just 8 operating roller coasters. Well, 7 this year, but let's leave that for later. Also, note how I said coasters, not credits, since I would count Racer as 2 credits, but 1 coaster. So essentially, in order to go to Kennywood, you need to plan a trip, which... money. That's something me and James found funny when discussing this during our Discords. Kennywood requires a trip, which... money. There's a triangle of 3 things that are possible on a trip to Kennywood. Park time, sleep, and money. You can only choose 2. Oh, you want park time and sleep? Well, you gotta spend money to get that. Oh, you want park time and money? Say goodbye to your sleep schedule. But what if you wanted money and sleep? Well, let's just say that you might not ride everything you want. So money and time can both be problems on their own, and they also conflict with each other. Isn't this just great? Spoilers for our future park trip plans in a few seconds. So if you don't want to know where we're going this year, skip to this timestamp on screen. Me and James were planning to do a trip up to Erie on Labor Day weekend so we could participate in Insane Coaster Junkies or ICJ's channel finale, Last Riff 4 at Waldameer Park. If you don't know who ICJ is, you might know him from some clips I use, like and motherfucker! He's a coaster YouTuber and Erie local who we were going to meet at Waldameer in 2022, but that ended up not happening. Anyway, as part of this trip, me and James were thinking of going to Six Flags Darien Lake. Since Saturday was mostly free, we figured that was a good park somewhat nearby that we could do as a day trip. It's only about 2 hours away from Erie. Now, you keyboard warriors in the comments might be typing something like, "But Derek, isn't Kennywood only 2 hours away from Erie as well?" And to that, I say, Kennywood is actually a consideration. Yes, if we went there, that would ruin the entire point of this video, but this video so far has just been reasons why we haven't gone yet. We just haven't had an excuse to, and this is kind of a perfect excuse. Plus, if we went this year, I think it would be really funny. Darien Lake is actually barely closer to Erie than Kennywood by like a couple minutes, but Kennywood is actually in between us and Erie, so it may make sense to go on Saturday, and then when the day is over, drive up to Erie and get a hotel there. Yes, we'd have to get up early, but see the last section of the video. If we were in Erie for longer, we could do both, but then that becomes a larger trip, which, money. So, which is better? Well, Darien Lake has some cookie cutter rides like Boomerang and Mind Eraser and Ride of Steel, and you can't ride the kids coaster. Fuck! At Kennywood though, you can ride Little Phantom, and they have much more unique rides like Phantom's Revenge, Skyrocket, Jackrabbit, Steel Curtain. Oh yeah. As most of you probably know, Kennywood added a new lawn ornament to the park this year. A hyper lawn ornament with 9 inversions and themed to one of the best football teams in Pennsylvania. Okay, but seriously, Steel Curtain is going to be closed for the entire 2024 season for repairs. If we do go this year, yes, I will have a reason to come back, but then I miss out on one more credit. It'll be like Knott's Berry Farm all over again. And yes, while Knott's is much further than Kennywood, I think I've already explained enough how getting to Kennywood again would be a pain in the ass. While it's a good park, I don't really see myself wanting to go there in back-to-back years. It would be such an effort for just one credit. I would rather go next year and get all the credits than return whenever they get something new, or if I'm in the area for a while. But at this point in my life, where I'm busy with internships and college and such, I really don't know if any of these trips are going to happen. As of right now, the plans I discussed earlier haven't even been finalized, so Darien Lake or even Last Riff 4 may not happen either. Believe me, I do want that trip to happen, but budgets are tight. I don't have a lot of free time, and James is still looking for jobs as of when I'm recording this. He may get a job at home in Westport County or up in Erie, but if it's the latter, everything is essentially flipped on its head. Our trips are basically hinged on the fact that we live near each other, but if we needed to travel separately, that would make things much more complicated. The only time Kennywood would be possible this year is Labor Day weekend. Will it happen? We don't know. James will probably have a job by then, but if that job is in Erie, it wouldn't be possible as I stated before. I am working on getting my driver's license and I hope to get it before Labor Day, but there's just so many variables in play that that trip might just not happen. And ultimately, getting a job and getting money to live your life is much more important than a few silly coaster credits. Yes, I'm a professional idiot, but there will be plenty more chances to visit Kennywood in the future, especially when Steel Curtain reopens. By next year, I hope it will have at least 5 years left in it after the refurbishment, since it is, being closed for this entire season. So, I'm not really in any rush right now, but I do want to go there by the end of the decade. But as I said, my personal life doesn't really allow for that. But one day, the stars will align, and everything will be just right, so that I can go to this wonderful park I've heard so much about. So, the question you may want the answer to is, will I ever go to Kennywood? The answer remains to be seen. We could go there this year, next year, in 2028, who knows? Maybe when I finally decide to go to Kennywood, it'll be a pile of rubble. I hope not. But there's just so many limiting factors that it's kind of ridiculous. Yes, it isn't necessarily a bucket list place, but it's only one state over from me and I've never been there. Plus, Phantom's Revenge looks like it slaps. Again, I mean no disrespect to anyone associated with Kennywood or anyone who has it as a home park. Ever since last fall, I had this video idea, and I found it so interesting that I just needed to talk about it. Thank you all for listening to me ramble on about the reasons I will never, ever go to Kennywood. Oh yeah, and one more thing.
Kennywood is the worst park in the world. Oh, that's so conventions, baby.